Hi, Liv.
Hello, hello.
How are you? Hi,
Fine,
Emma.
fine.
How are you?
Thank you.
Good afternoon, all.
So we will be waiting for now Ufra and Dr. Sadia, and we will wait 5 minutes more because most of attendees can join on exact 3:30 of Pakistan time. So we have 2 minutes more.
Okay, fine.
Guys, do you hear me? Is everything
Yes,
is okay?
yes,
Yeah, okay.
everything okay. Yeah.
Yes, we can hear and see you properly.
Nice.
And remember, very nice office, very nice background,
Thanks.
and also for Liv.
Thank you. Thank you.
Лев, ты там демонстрацию экрана включишь, правильно? Не забудь, когда презентацию начнешь, когда я тебе передам слово. Вот, чтобы...
Обязательно? Я думал рассказывать.
Не-не, включи, пусть будет на глаза. Ты знаешь, как демонстрация, да? Там кнопка демонстрации экрана.
Никогда не это. Ну, тут есть share screen, да?
Да, вот, нажмешь, и там выберешь в окне именно презентацию свою, чтобы она типа расшарила для всех. Ну, пусть читают, чтобы фон был какой-то, знаешь. Так, что ты себе будешь тут читать на... А, у тебя что там этот?
Да, у меня же она с комментами.
Не-не, надо поставить презентацию. Ты можешь комменты?
Сейчас...
So, Ufa just joined us. Welcome, Ufa. Hi, Ufa.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Ufa, can you also please keep your video switch on because main panelist should keep the video switch on. I will take only 5 minutes and then I will hand over to Emma. And after event of peaks, we will come to GCC with you and Dr. Sadia. Okay?
Yes, sure.
Thank you. So we will wait 5 minutes more because we allowed everybody to join exact 3:30 of Pakistan time. So you can see now number of attendees are increasing, and this is also available on YouTube and Facebook Live. So many participants will join there. So Dr. Sadia just joined us. Dr. Sadia.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. Yes, please. We can hear you, and also please keep your video on. Your video is on in the system, but we cannot see you. Maybe it will take few minutes. Hi, Khiza. Khiza also joined us. Khiza is supporting us in all
webinar GMP compliance
IT sport. So, Dr. Sadia, we cannot see your video.
You cannot? Okay.
No, but on the system it is on, but we cannot see it. Maybe taking little time. You can.
I see.
You cannot
I can
see?
see also her video. Sir, I can see her video too.
Okay, now I can see.
अपना आईडी ईमेल कर दे मुझे, मैं कर
Yeah.
देता हूँ, कोई मसला नहीं है.
So now everybody is visible. So I think after 3 minutes we can start.
मौसम बेशक आप कर दो.
नहीं, मैं उसको कहता हूँ ईमेल कर देता हूँ.
Please switch off the mic of Fiza. Maybe he's talking in the office and voice is coming. Hello, Fiza. So let's start. Just to save time of everybody. Good afternoon from GMP Compliance Academy. Thank you so much, all participants and OT from Ukraine and Misufa from Dubai to talk about GCC and Dr. Sadia Muazzam as our moderator for Gulf Cooperation Council registration and export procedures.
वो मैं कहता है ये
I would
मैं
like to
भरा वो
first
प्राइसिंग है, इधर अगर इनको एक मेल कर दें तो वो पूरा आईडी बना दें.
let me
लॉगिन
increase
अगर टाइम है वो 32,496 कोड है ना 32496.
Can we request our
आप
participants
जो
to
टाइम
please
ट्रैक्स पे लॉगिन आईडी
so-
बना दें. ठीक है, वो कर दे तो मैं बैठा हूँ.
please can we request our
पता है
participants?
वो किधर डॉट करनी है global.com. चलो ठीक है.
Right. Dr. Kamran, you can continue, please.
Yes, thank you. I just talked to Fiza. So now I would like to start from GCA introduction. GMP Compliance Academy was established with the vision that we will be global center for knowledge connection and supply chain, and we will support the people for their better future, including pharmaceutical industry and pharmaceutical professional. We have 4 clear values. You can see here, one is knowledge sharing, other is partnership, third is reliability, and fourth is the ethics. And we are strictly compliant these in our business operations. GMP compliance is a 2 strategic pillar. One is free knowledge sharing for pharma knowledge development, and other is technical services. And we have a connection in CIS, Europe, US, GCC. So we are supporting pharmaceutical industry in all different regions. We will talk about on the different slides. You can see our services from sterile, non-sterile, quality control, quality assurance, regulatory affairs, validation, trainings, and then we have for suppliers, IT, corporate development, operational excellence, warehouse management. Then we have a partnership with different suppliers in Europe, like we are partner with Exido Germany, ISGB from Italy, and ISPE from USA. And we are also partner with some Chinese company for pharmaceutical machines and materials. And we are also exporting from Pakistan different type of medical devices. We also have a system of membership, which will be on our website. You can visit, and we are also promoting ISPE to make Pakistan affiliate chapter. And we are in the process of expansion. We will have 4 offices in Pakistan, UAE, Europe, USA, and later on we are also planning to open one office in China. And this is our brief introduction. Now I would like to hand over presentation to Mr. Remar. Remar, please introduce yourself, OT Farm, and Mr. Leaf, so we can talk about PICS procedure from Ukraine. Yes, please, Remar.
Greetings to all participants of today's webinar. Thank you, Mr. Kamran. At the beginning, I would like to introduce myself, some brief information. My name is Maxim Rimmer. I am the CEO of Ukrainian company Farm, which provides different services in pharmaceutical sector for pharmaceutical manufacturers. including registration services, pharmacovigilance services, medical writing, and of course, assistance in certification of production for pharmaceutical manufacturers from Ukraine, Europe, and Asia. The first part of today's webinar is dedicated to pharmaceutical export to Ukraine. Ukraine is located in Eastern Europe with a population of about 40 million people. The pharmaceutical market of Ukraine is actively developing and growing now. Last year, for example, it was more than $3 billion and it's predicted to reach for about 5 billion in the next few years. For better understanding for our participants, in legislative terms, Ukraine is close to the European legislation with regard to the pharmaceutical sector, with some national characteristics. The main law which regulating procedure of registration of medicine in Ukraine was created on the basis of European Union Directive 2001/83, and the dossier is submitted in CTD format in accordance with the ACH recommendation. Also, GMP certification is carried out in accordance with PCAS GMP requirements. So you can see that most of all Ukraine use European legislation and worldwide legislation to create our own legislation basis. Recently, a lot of pharmaceutical manufacturers from Asia interested in Ukraine not only as a promising market for selling their products, but also as the first step to entering the European Union market, since it will be much easier to enter to Europe when they have a registered product in Ukraine. To be able to enter to Ukrainian market, manufacturers must complete registration procedure for their products. Applicants must pay attention to three main critical points for successful registration in Ukraine. First point is a dossier in CTD format. Second point is a certification of manufacture. And third point is arrangement of pharmacovigilance system. As I mentioned before, in Ukraine, dossier submitted in CTD format, and the dossier must be in accordance with ACH requirements. Recent changes in the legislation gives opportunity to applicants to preparing their dossier in eCTD format. But at the moment, the regulatory authority system is not technically ready to implement this approach. Therefore, in the near future, the only way will be to submit the dossier in CTD format. The procedure of registration of one product in Ukraine from submission initial application to registration for registration product to obtaining registration certificate takes on average from 10 to 12 months. In the process of registration of medical products, manufacturer undertakes to provide documents on certification of manufacture in compliance with GMP. Without this documentation, finalization of registration of product is impossible. Application can start without a GMP PCAS certification, but can't complete registration procedure. In Ukraine, few weeks ago, was changed main law concerning GMP certification, and now in Ukraine we have very strict requirements for new manufacturers from countries that not are members of PCAS. Now I would like to give a floor for my colleague, expired GMP inspector, Mr. Lev Litvinenko. He will provide detailed information concerning GMP certification by Ukrainian authority with PCASH requirements. Lev?
Thank you very much, Maxim. Hello, everyone. I hope you are doing well. My name is Lev Litvinenko. I'm a certified auditor of GMP, GDP, ISO, and MDD. My total experience in the pharmaceutical industry is over 20 years. Today, I want to explain the procedure of certification in Ukraine in 2020. I want to switch on presentation. Okay. First of all, I want I will start with information about our national authority. Okay, I want to change a little bit the view. Okay. The State Service of Ukraine on Medicines and Drug Control is the central executive authority whose activities are directed and coordinated by the Ministry of Health of Ukraine. Ukraine has access to PICS inspection scheme in January 2011. And Ukraine aims at harmonizing inspection procedure worldwide by developing common standards in field of GMP. The main instrument for harmonization has been the PICS GMP guide. In addition to this document, PICS developing many guidelines and some recommendation, like some site master file, recommendation for manufacture of API for some particular product, like biological products, and all Ukrainian regulatory documentation are guided by only PICS documents. It's harmonizing procedure. Due to the new global trends in the world and travel restrictions, a new certification procedure number 1346 was adopted in June. It's just currently new procedure for all manufacturers who want to certify it in Ukraine. It was on the base of the previous one, but some major changes was included, and I want to explain what's the reason and what is the current new procedure. To start with the certification procedure in Ukraine, you must submit an application. I want to explain who can apply this application for certification. First of all, it is a holder of a marketing authorization. Second one is the holder of license for the production. It's manufacturer itself, or it can be authorized person, representative which located in Ukraine, and which is responsible for the accuracy of the information and documents. Representative of applicant is a person who acting under respective power of attorney, in which applicant has the rights to represent his interests in Ukraine. At the moment, in the accordance with this procedure, with new procedure of GMP assessment, there are two ways of certification, of confirmation. It's based on relevant application form. We have two application forms. One on issue of a certificate of GMP. One, the issue of a conclusion of GMP. This procedure of recognition of official documents, certificates, without inspection. Previously, Ukraine recognized the certificates of all PIGS countries, but in new certification procedure, certificate introduced recognition of official documents on the GMP requirements issued by the authorized bodies of only EU member states, Great Britain, USA, Canada, Switzerland, New Zealand, Australia, Japan, and Israel. That's all. Let's discuss the first certification way. First certification, you need to apply the application for issue of certificate. Manufacturers which do not have certificates issued by the European member states, Great Britain, and some other countries that sign with some recognition agreement with EU or Ukraine may submit to state administration application form to issue of GMP certificate, and also a set documentation to it. The inspection, after that, inspection carried out on the manufacturing site in accordance with some approved inspection plan, inspection program. In program and plan specifying purpose of inspection, timeline of inspection, facilities, dates, and identified group of inspectors. That's all. Inspection plan and inspection also cover all manufacturing areas, all quality control areas, all storage areas, packing material storage, in bulk process, and 100% of your manufacturing site included in the inspection program. The main part of inspection is analysis of documentation, and our inspectors is very strict, but not only in Ukraine, US inspectors and EU inspectors also to check documents in a strict way. Second way is recognition of certificates. For example, if GMP certificates issued by EU member state, Great Britain, USA, Canada, Switzerland, New Zealand, Australia, Japan, and Israel, you need to submit application form on the issue on GMP conclusion without any inspection. It's just only the documented procedure of assessment of these documents. Also, you need to submit the marketing authorization for products issued by this competent body. If you, in the absence of marketing authorization copies, according to the procedure, if you have a certificate of EU states, Great Britain, etc., but you don't have marketing authorization, you have to submissions application, site inspection should be conducted. Now, in the period of COVID-19 and summer restriction to traveling and pandemic in the world, which is not possible to conduct its inspection in manufacturing site. Remote assessment should be done. During the period, this period, applicant or authorized representative of the applicant may submit application form for GMP inspection and for remote inspection to the GMP requirements. What are the main stages of confirmation? First of all, I told you about submission to state administration an application form. On issue a certificate is form 1, or application form to issue a conclusion is form 2, and set of documentation. For every form is a different kind of set of documentation. Second stage is a review and processing the submitted set of documents. We call it specialized expertise. This is a documental part of assessment. After expertise, if everything is okay with documentation and with your application, manufacturing site inspection and including inspection of contract laboratories and warehouses, if you have some agreement with third-party companies, should be done. After inspection, you receive the certificate. After inspection, you receive the report, and after that, the first stage is decision on issue the GMP certificate or recent conclusion to refusal of its issue. I want to please note that conformity assessment duration according to the procedure. First step is specialized expertise shall be carried out in term not of more than 20 working days. Manufacturing site inspection shall be carried out within term not more than 15 working days. Normally it takes 4-6 days. And report compilation time on manufacturing site inspection result shall be not more than 10 working days from the end of the inspection. Total time for assessment and for GMP confirmation is nearby 4 months. It's depend of manufacturing site and application and number of products. Based on the inspection result, excuse me, it's a little bit. Okay, based on the inspection results, an inspector shall compile a report on inspection results. The reports compiled in Ukrainian language in duplicate. One for applicant, one is for storage in state administration. Additionally, you can ask English or Russian version of this document. The report shall include conclusion on conformity or non-conformity of the manufacturer, which is the requirements of the GMP. In the last day of inspection, in the last meeting, you receive the general view of inspector, and they give conclusion of inspection in the last day of inspection, and this conclusion you need to discuss if you have some issues with inspector in last day. In addition, I want to say that if during inspection one critical or more than 6 major observation or non-conformities identified, the applicant does not meet the GMP requirements. Only if you receive not more than 6 major observations without critical, you meet the requirements with Ukrainian GMP. This current cost of conformity is around 15,000 to 20,000 US dollars. It's official payment to state administration company. If everything okay with inspection, GMP certificate is valid for 3 years from the date of inspection and can be shortened based on the protocol of risk assessment in some particular cases. This is just a new point in the GMP procedure and introduce remote assessment with the intent to further issue of GMP certificate by state administration based on documented questionnaire of the manufacturer. Remote assessment can be carried out in case of declaration of emergency by Ukraine or another country, in case of pandemic like COVID-19, and in all cases which make impossible to conduct inspection due to increased physical danger to inspector. This procedure say that you need to submit a set of documents. After specialized expertise, you receive a list of documents which you need to submit for desktop audit. After that, you receive plan of remote inspection, and Zoom or Skype also used for such kind of remote inspection. Thank you very much. If you have some questions, you can contact Pharma. This is contact information.
Okay, thank you, Lev, for informative presentation. I think at the end of the webinar, we will have a Q&A part. If someone want to ask some questions in our web chat, we can give answers if that will be need. Also, I want to say a few words about supporting of pharmaceutical manufacturers which want to enter for Ukrainian market. In our company, we have a lot of experienced experts which have qualification to be representative of manufacturing in Ukraine, starting from preparing all documents for submission, communication with our state authority of Ukraine, and assistance during official inspection if it's need. In addition, I want to say that we have one very useful service for manufacturers. It's preliminary inspections which conducted by our experts. These experts in the past worked in our authority, and they all very well known which requirements official inspections required from manufacturers. So we have service of preliminary inspections. After this inspection, manufacturer received a CAPA plan with all weaknesses and non-completion to GMP requirements, and the manufacturer have the time to work with all problems that it have. It's a very good proposition. We have a few clients from Pakistan which we work with for this scheme, and this is have good results because, as Lev mentioned, when official inspection find one critical observation on 6 non-critical observations, inspections will not done. So if a manufacturer want to prepare and be keep and safe that official inspection will be going fine, it's a good proposition. If someone have questions, we can work with it.
Thank you so much, Rema and Lev. It was very informative presentation. Lev, can you please exit your screen? So we will take all questions, and at the end of the session, now I would like to invite Dr. Sadia. She's a global regulatory expert. She worked with many multinationals, including Pfizer, USA subsidiary in Pakistan. And Dr. Ufa, she's a regulatory affairs and pharmacovigilance expert based in Dubai and looking after GCC and Africa and CIS region for export, registration, inspections, and all coordination. So I would like Dr. Sadia, please introduce yourself and then continue the session with Dr. Ufa together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Kamran. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. First of all, I wish all of you a safe time at home. Most of us are working from home, and hopefully you are safe and your relatives are safe from corona. So I wish you all the best. And I think we have to be safe further, because now still there is not a time to be open and go into the market just like this, because we are still at risk. So just to introduce myself, I think from Pakistan, most of my colleagues probably they know me, or because recently I have been into the regulatory industry and I was working with Pfizer. My full name is Sadia Mosam. I'm a by profession, by qualification, I'm a medical graduate from Lahore, but I have been associated with the pharma industry for more than 17 years. It's been and worked with various multinationals. And I've been working in different other fields as well, including regulatory. My last company was Pfizer, where I was based. I was based in Karachi, and I was working as a head of regulatory. And for that, while working with Pfizer, I've been also been associated with Ministry of Health, working for policy matters. And recently, if you are aware of it, there has been a policy has been recently developed on the first national medicine policy. And I was one of the key contributors working with the Ministry of Health directly. Now recently I've been part of GCA, and thank you to Dr. Kamran. He's been kind enough to include me to his team, and as he has already introduced you with the GCA. GCA is a very, I would say, a very wide platform and a very effective platform if we will fully use it. And it is basically the key objective of this platform is the knowledge development and sharing, and also the technical expertise development and technical services. So they have the partners, as he has mentioned already, and one of the key partners is the Synergy Consulting that is based in US, and Miss Peggy J. Berry is she's running that Synergy Consulting company, and she has got more than 25 years of experience in drugs and biotech development. So today's basically our objective of this session is that we will be discussing for the exports to GCC countries, and we will also discuss the significance of exports to GCC. And for that matter, we have invited Ms. Ufra Ahmed. She's already based in Dubai, if I'm correct. And she has a lot of expertise in this area. Just a brief intro, definitely Ms. Ufra will introduce herself to you also. She's a pharmacist by profession, by qualification, and she has a number of years of experience. And she's a regulatory expert for GCC, CIS, MENA, and West African countries registrations. Just to give you a brief overview that why we are focusing this area is that currently 80% of pharma products are being imported from Western and other countries to GCC countries. The reason being is that they have they do have the manufacturing units located in their own in GCC areas, but they are not enough to cover the capacity constraint. There are capacity issues, and there are not enough number of units. Like for example, in Dubai, in UAE, they have only 15 units established, and in Saudi Arabia, they have 20 units located. So there is definitely a more demand with the increasing dynamics, with the changing dynamics, and there is a more demand for it. So for that matter, I will hand over this session to Ms. Ofra I will be also asking her certain questions. I will be requesting her to introduce herself in detail, and as well as I would like her to tell us something about what exactly the market dynamics has been changed, and why the increasing demand in GCC countries have become so suddenly a new era that where we have to focus more from Pakistan, from the Pakistani markets? This is what my question is. So first you start, Ms. Afra, I would like you to start with your introduction, and then we'll start with the question and answers. Thank you.
Thank you and good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me correctly. If it's given a good introduction already, thank you for that. I'm currently working as regulatory and pharmacovigilance officer and based in Dubai, handling all the country's registration, company registrations in the area GCC, and I had a lot of experience in Middle East countries and African countries. So I'll be sharing the screen to start the presentation.
Leave, can you please exit the screen and then Ufa can share the screen? Yes, thank you. Ufa, now you can please share your screen.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Is it a full screen? I need to make it.
It's a slide view, you can make full.
It's fine now.
Yes, fine. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll be discussing about the GCC Pharma product registrations. The GCC, it stands for the Gulf Cooperation Council, and it consists of the 6 countries: Kuwait, Oman, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and United Arab Emirates. By end of the presentation, you will be having an idea how the pharmaceutical product registrations are done, what are the requirements, the procedure, timelines, and then we will discuss some important considerations and most frequently asked queries, so that we'll have a good idea about our dossier, which has to be as per perfect as to have minimum queries and to achieve the registration in minimum time. So first thing is the facility registration, and then is the product registration. Manufactured first before we proceed for the finished product or the pharmaceutical product registration. For the site registration, the important considerations are facility accreditations, and for the finished product, it is the ECTD dossier, and then the product marketing status in reference countries and other export countries, country of origin. Just have an overview about the general requirements. What is the file consist of the company registrations? First of all is the letter of appointment. So to enter the market, either we need to have a local scientific office in the region or the and handling the procedure. So you will be having a letter of appointment for local agency. It has to be legalized. Say a registration application form, company registration certificate, the licenses to manufacture, the GMP certificates, summary of company activities, list of products, R&D activities, and site master file. So they may also request plant layouts and undertaking for the products to be exported. This undertaking is about like the product which will be marketed will be exactly the same how it is manufactured in country of origin. The product for the product registration, the criteria is ECTD. We are following the GCC ECTD criteria. For GCC, let's have an idea about the scope, the statistics, who are the members of the GCC and growth triggering factors, and then we'll see the Gulf Health Council, which is controlling the activities for the GCC registration, especially centrally. GCC market offers unexplored and exponential growth opportunities for the pharmaceutical companies because more than 80% of the products are imported. So GCC pharmaceutical market is expected to grow about 20 billion US dollar in another 5 years. Patented and OTC pharmaceutical markets, they account for 70% of the market. Sorry. The share of the imported products is more than 80%, and Saudi Arabia dominates the market with having more than 50% of the share. The members include Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. A very high or very good GDP per capita. That's the reason, like if you take the example of Qatar, the second richest country in the world with highest GDP, with a GDP capita of $124,900 for its 2.8 million residents. And for Kuwait, it's 4.1 million residents. They enjoy 11th highest standards of the living in the world. So it's a booming economy, and that's why we'll just go to the triggering factors: aging population, urbanization, the prevalence of chronic diseases, improved coverage, infrastructure and diagnostics, availability of new products. So these are basically the growth triggering factors, which is booming the market in the GCC region. Gulf Health Council. The Gulf Health Council was established in 1976 under the guidance of Council of Ministers. It is organizationally linked to the General Secretariat of the GCC. Its membership is limited to GCC member states, and the Council is dedicated to achieve sustainable and good health for all GCC citizens. So we will discuss the types of the registration, like how we can enter the market. There are two types: either you go for a central registration or a decentralized registration. Central registration, it's a unified system for registration of medicines, and decentralized, you have to go to the, as per each country, each Gulf country's member state national submission system. So now we will discuss more detail about central registration. Central registration, it's a unified system for registration of medicines carried out by Central Gulf Committee for Drug Registration. It's called GCCDR. So the committee members, 2 members from each country. Objectives there. The objectives are unifying the registration of pharmaceutical companies in the GCC countries, unifying the regulations and procedure during the registration process, unifying the pricing of the medicines marketed in GCC countries, increasing integration and coordination amongst member states in the pharmaceutical field, consolidating information and systems used in registering medicines, ensuring the application of international standards manufacturing facilities, monitoring the quality and side effects of registered approved medicine, using the lowest cost, obtaining safe and effective medicine at affordable prices. These are the objectives for the Central Registration Committee, and these are the functions they are performing to obtain their objectives. The Central Gulf Committee for Drug Registration, GCCDR, the functions are registering the drugs and pharmaceutical companies according to the unified registration regulations, studying the technical reports on the pharmaceutical companies and their products, as well as taking the necessary measures, adopting reports of analysis on pharmaceutical products issued by reference laboratories, determining the export price of pharmaceutical products, inspecting, they also carry out the inspection of the and GMP compliance. So now we'll go to the procedure, how the company's central registration is carried out. So as discussed, we'll be having an authorized agent which will apply for the application of pharmaceutical company registration. It is important to know for the registration is only accepted for the companies or marketing authorizations that has their own factories. GMP inspection fee has to be paid, which is followed by GCC committee members visit. If the visit has any non-compliance and which caused the rejection, you can reapply after 1 year with the proof that the observation arising earlier are covered. Observations to be responded within 6 months. If you fail committee approval issues certificate of the company registration, which is valid for 5 years. The company must complete the administrative procedure for the registration of the company in all GCC countries 1 year from the date of its central registration. So once your company is registered, within 1 year, you have to complete the company registration in each country. So it means GCC registration is not an individual registration in each of the country, but it facilitates the registration in each single GCC country. Requirements, we will see the requirements which has to be considered before we are going for the pharmaceutical product. Company must make product application within 1 year from the date of its central registration. So this is also like once your product is registered within 1 year, you have to go for the product application within 1 year. All manufacturing sites involved in the product manufacturing must be centrally registered according to the official rules. So in case your bulk manufacturer and batch releasing sites are two different companies, so each has to be registered centrally before you proceed for the product registration. The product submitted for central registration must be registered and marketed in the country of origin, reference country for at least 1 year before application to the central registration. So this is also one of the requirements that at least 1 year before you decide for the central registration. There is an increasing now, there is more about pharmacovigilance, and but for central registration, it was much earlier a QPPV, qualified person for pharmacovigilance, has to be appointed, which is responsible for monitoring and follow up the side effects and quality of the product. There is also like once the first generic is coming in the market, you are planning to register the first generic, then a patent document has to be as we have already discussed in the previous webinars, the CTD and eCTD structure. So I'll just have this, I am just sharing the module 1 because it's regional, the requirements, the cover letter, the application form, and it remains the same whether you go for the central or the decentralized registration. The cover letter, application form, product information, information on the experts, and then environmental risk assessment, pharmacovigilance, certificates and documents. And it says for the even we need to have alcohol or content declarations, pricing. It is not allowed to use alcohol in pharmaceutical products. However, registration committee can exclude essential products from this condition with an approved ratio of alcohol. API DMF approval from the pharmaceutical reference authorities and CEP and letter of access. It is also needed. The registration gateway for the central registration is called Ta'awun. It is a collaborative portal that serves as a bridge between GCC member states and drugs and medical device companies. The portal enables companies to apply for new applications, track their existing ones, as well as they allow the companies to participate in the tenders electronically. This is the screenshot from the portal. This is the Ta'awun Pharmaceuticals, and you can, the username password is only the authorized agents. They can log in and make these applications through this portal. For the product registration, they will be having access to make this application online, You have to have a GCC format ECTD. The dossier submission is done. If there are any queries, you will have to respond it in the timelines, analysis requirements, and then we get the registration. This was how the central registration was. Now the decentralized registration. The decentralized registration is the registration, product registration in each GCC country as per national submission. And then we go for the product registration. So we'll go to now Saudi Arabia, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Just we'll briefly discuss about the procedure in each country. Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the health authority is called Saudi Food and Drug Authority, SFDA. In the electronic system which aims to facilitate the registration of medicinal, herbal, and health products for both human and veterinary use. There is a mandatory ECTD from Jan 2015, and these are the links for the SFDA and SDR system. We will see the submission process. The applicant, the first thing is to go to the SDR, Saudi Drug Registration System website. And there is an online application. We have to fill the application form, complete the required information, and fees has to be paid. If it is not paid, cannot submit the application. So once your fees are paid, we have to schedule an appointment and then submit the application form. This generates one reference number which you have to use in your product. And it is for all the correspondence, this reference number is used. File, some hard copies is required and the soft copy and the samples. This is submitted to SFDA headquarters. The RA pharmacist, they will perform phase 1 validation. If it is valid, there is an acknowledgement letter and it enters the assessment queue. So this is a marketing authorization. I have a drug application submission. If it is valid, another phase 2 validation is done. Product file is distributed for assessment, testing, and inspection. So all the reviews, if it confirms, then it goes to the pricing. And if there are any of the inquiries, again, it will go for an electronic inquiry form is sent and you have to again come for the submission. Is finalized. There are negotiations with the companies also as well. And once it is finalized, the registration committee decision, it approves, then you get a final product registration certificate. Again, there are the timelines because each step, there are some target performance days are there. So he'll go to the process details and timelines. Validation phase 2, 10 days. So for the performance target days are 10 days. Completed file process to the next steps, assessment, testing, and inspection. Missing or incomplete application is notified electronically. There is an inquiry. 90 days to respond. If this is the timeline to respond, otherwise the application gets rejected. The second phase is assessment. For generic, it takes almost 120 days. And for the new products, it takes 245 days if it is already registered in some stringent regulatory authority. Otherwise, it takes 370 days for the new product molecule. In the assessment, there is a quality assessment, there is safety and efficacy assessment. So all these assessments, the report is generated and submitted to the product manager. After the assessment, it goes to testing and it takes almost 90 days. Samples received by SFDA are sent to laboratory. If further information is needed, an inquiry form is sent. You have to respond in 90 days. Testing will not delay the registration. And once the first batch is imported, after approval, it is tested and notified within 35 days. So you cannot market the product for 35 days. After testing, there is an inspection which takes 120 days. Head of the inspection unit carries out the inspection. They will be inspecting the manufacturing lines and approvals. Next, it goes to the pricing, which takes around 20 days or less. Price calculation as per the SFDA pricing rules. There is a separate guidelines for the pricing. As per that, the product is priced. Then next, it goes to the product licensing. 12 days, registration committee approval, and then SFDA CEO approval generates the registration certificate. Now coming to United Arab Emirates, the authority is called Ministry of Online Product Submission Portal is called Smart Services. There is an ECTD which has to be submitted. The bulk manufacturer, batch releasing site, and MAH, they has to be registered before you go for the product registration. This is the dashboard and the how the smart services. I've taken the screenshot of that. You will be having a notifications for all these. If there are any expiry of the products is approaching, pending corrections, pending with MOH, and if there are some pending payments or rejected applications. The procedure. For this United Arab Emirates, you need to have a pre-submission approval through email, an online submission. Once you have the pre-approval response from the authority, it usually takes 1 to 2 days. You will send some few requirements about the product you are planning to submit. After the approval, you can submit the online dossier. So it's ECTD dossier, and once the dossier is received by the authority, they will be performing a validation, and it will be shared through email to you. Their fees has to be paid, and then the dossier enters the evaluation. The evaluation is for technical, quality part, quality control analysis, stability, bioequivalence, and pricing. In all these evaluation, if there are some queries, you will be keep getting notification through the online portal as well as through emails. Once all the queries are done and you have the acceptance of all these evaluations, you have to go for the artwork finalization as the last step. And then once the artworks are finalized, registration certificate is issued. And the samples, it is for foreign manufacturers. When we import the first consignment, samples for analysis are taken from the first order. The timelines for site registration, you have to pay 10,000 dirhams. It takes less than 1 month, and that's valid for 5 years. The validity is 5 years. Moving on to Bahrain, we'll just go through, because all the, like how we have discussed the SFDA and MOHAP, the procedure remains the same throughout the other member states. However, there are few requirements which are more specific to some countries. For example, Bahrain, and let us start with the authority. The authority is called National Health Regulatory Authority. And the department which handles the drug registrations are Pharmaceutical Product Regulations. It's abbreviated PPR. Product must be licensed and marketed in country of origin at least 1 year before we proceed for the submission. It has a mandatory ECTD from 1st November 2016. Manufacturer and batch releaser must have a valid NHRA license before you proceed for the product registration. Generic formulation, the first generic only, they must have relevant document from Bahrain Patent Office and GCC Patent Office. The dossier, it's ECTD. There are the application forms and checklist fees, which is all updated in this link, and you can download from there before you proceed for your ECTD's file submission. The ECTD and lab file, together with the samples, standards, specifications, composition certificate, MSDS, they are submitted. The serialization is a mandatory for all the products. Now onwards, validity of the product is 5 years. Qatar, Pharmacy and Drug Control Department, PDCD, in the Ministry of Public Health is Drug Authority in the state of Qatar. Application are submitted through PDCD e-system. This is the link for that. Product registration requirements, submission of the file in the ECTD format, samples and standards for quality control analysis purpose, reference for the submitted product from any competent health authority. So in this case, you cannot proceed for your product registration until unless your product is registered in any of the reference country already. The process flow, it's the submission of the registration request on PDCD online e-system by authorized pharmaceutical agent. You need to schedule an appointment for initial file screening in which the file is information. They inform the agent for any further requirements or clarifications is needed. And then you receive the PDCD opinion about acceptance or rejection of the file. Oman Ministry of Health, Sultanate of Oman. This is the link for that. Product is in ECTD. It's submitted with one sample. Quality control requirements are taken from the first consignment, same like in UAE. Again, serialization is mandatory here, and the registration timelines are 6 to 9 months. Kuwait, Ministry of Health, Drug and Food Control Administration. The link is here for this. There are all the information available. MAH registration, including manufacturing company and companies. It is the first thing you have to register MAH. CTD, they are accepting CTD and also ECTD. So if we look overall, the decentralized procedure, the company registration, of course, it's mandatory in all the 6 states. Then the reference country requirements, you cannot proceed for, if you don't have a reference country registration, you cannot go for a site registration to be accepted in UAE, Bahrain, or Qatar. So we need to have one reference country before we start planning registration in these countries. Appointment or pre-approval, there is an appointment is needed. For KSA, it's an online application form. For UAE, go for the product registration. And Oman, Bahrain, Kuwait, and Qatar, an appointment request has to be made. ECTD, it's almost mandatory, except Kuwait is accepting CTD as well. Samples and analysis requirement with the dossier. For KSA, yes, it is submitted with the dossier, but for UAE and Oman, you can submit it with the first consignment. Like once you import your first consignment, the samples are taken from that for analysis. For Bahrain and Kuwait and Qatar, yes, the samples are going with the dossier. Timelines is KSA is 6 months, UAE 3 to 6 months, and others 6 to 9 months you will be having the product registered. Some important considerations is DMF or ASMF approval is mandatory. Pharmacovigilance system and QPPV, there are some requirements to have a local QPPV like in KSA and UAE. And the pharmacovigilance system, it's like a lot of, we can discuss it later in detail. There is a pharmacovigilance site master file and a national PV system is also required. Stability studies, it's zone for A, and you may get requests about the PMR of the bio batches, validation batches, or the stability batches. Reference country registration, sometimes it is very mandatory as we discussed already. Adhere to the timelines of the response. Whatever timelines, if it's for artworks by graphic design, SFDA, there are very detailed and guidelines for the artworks we have to follow. The restricted part of the DMF, it is also requested in GCC, SFDA, and PDCD. Updated PIL and SMPCs and PIL comparisons is also requested by Bahrain and HRA. That was all about the GCC. I hope if you got some idea about the registration of the company and products, please we can have more questions to complete this discussion. And Sadia, if what you were asking, if it is already answered or you want me to explain further about some point.
Dr. Sadia, please switch on your mic. Your mic is off.
Right. Thank you, Ofra, for a very informative presentation, and it was very comprehensive. Thank you so much for that. I would like to understand from Pakistan perspective that as you have given two ways of registration. One is the centralized and the other is decentralized one. So which one would you prefer is going to be benefit for most of the countries? So whether centralized is better and more beneficial for, I'm talking from Pakistan perspective.
Yeah, actually, if we talk about Pakistan perspective, as I mentioned, we need to have, before we plan any product, we need to have a reference. Product, any company has a product registered in reference country, we need to proceed for, again, the option is the centralized procedure is not equal to decentralized. Once you have the product centrally registered, you get facilitation and many of the requirements gets waived off and the time is reduced to register the product in each country. Second important thing to consider is whether the product is good for the tenders, because once your product is centrally registered, you can go for the tenders, and having a reference country registration, then only go for decentralized if the product is not a tender one. Otherwise, for the tender related items, it's good to have central registration.
Right, right. Thank you. I would like to also understand the artwork requirements. There are two things that I would like to know. One is the requirement of track and trace, serialization.
Yes,
Is this requirement in all of the GCC countries?
Not yet mandatory. For example, in UAE, it's recommended, but it's not mandatory. How we have in KSA, Bahrain, and Oman. So you cannot, whatever the registered products, you cannot further export until unless you have the serialization. You have to comply with the requirements.
And the second is what? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
For the artworks, yes, you asked about the artworks. Yes, the language, Arabic and English. Usually, if for some of the products, there are some exclusions. For example, if your product is for hospital use, you may give a request for not having the Arabic translation and it can be considered.
Right. Right, thank you. That was my second question. And then I would like to understand what about the stability requirements? I mean, as you mentioned, there's I think zone 4A is the requirement. So is then other than zone 4A will also be accepted in certain conditions?
The recommended is zone 4A, and if you have even zone 4B, because the humidity gets higher in that 30, 75, it also gets accepted. And there are some exclusions. For example, if the product is for hospital use, that they're sure it will be stored in appropriate condition, and the product is an essential medicine. So you may get acceptance based on zone 225 degrees.
Okay, thank you. And about pricing, which is one of a very sensitive matter in Pakistan, I am not really sure. And for my information, please, can you further add, as you also mentioned a small part of it in your presentation. So for my understanding, I would like to know whether pricing will be is also part of the registration process, and it is also controlled by the Ministry of Health in these countries, or it is controlled by some other ministry?
Now, each ministry, there are the guidelines which are controlling it, apart from seeing the whatever the company has proposed, but there are standard guidelines. They will be following that. If the innovator product is there, normally, like if you take for UAE, the first generic is going to get 60% of the price of the, this is all for the imported products. If generic gets 60%, the next one gets 50% compared to the innovator, and 40%, and it remains same after that. For Saudi also, there are like the first in a generic, it gets 15% less than the innovator price, and the next generic gets 10% less. So after third generic, it remains the like whatever the products are registered after third generics, they are having 10% less with that.
Okay. And what any pharmacovigilance activities going on in these countries? Or necessary, yeah, or necessary for the foreign countries to conduct any pharmacovigilance activities in these countries?
Yeah, the pharmacovigilance activities, they are implemented, like they're getting implemented every, we see the new updates. Before there was a to have a local QPPV, qualified person for pharmacovigilance, the same like in UAE, but now you need to have a national PV system. So all the marketing authorization holders, they need to have a proper pharmacovigilance system, which are controlling the activities in that region specific to that country.
Okay. And one last question from my side, and after that, I think we will be inviting our participants to ask further questions. My question is that do you have any information, any Pakistani companies are already registered in these countries, or any products are available from Pakistan in these countries?
Didn't see any registered products in the market. However, there are for generic pharmaceutical conventional, it's not available, but for GSL and herbal, they are available. So it's not yet for.
Sorry, your voice it was breaking up. So you are saying that you have not seen any pharmaceutical products from Pakistan in these markets?
Yeah, it's not registered, yes.
Okay, right. Thank you once again, Afra. And I think, Dr. Kamran, we can proceed with our participants if they have any questions.
Before going for the questions from Rema and Dr. Dev, I would like to thank you so much for a very informative and detailed presentation. And I think your kids also enjoying your presentation too much. And Dr. Sadia, thank you so much. Very nice moderation and wonderful questions, because pricing is also a very hot issue in Pakistan, because it is not controlled by ministry, it is controlled by Prime Minister. So it is taking too long, sometime 1 year, 2 years, if they are busy. So I would like to thank you, Dr. Ufa, Dr. Sadia, Shoaib Saab, always with us, Dr. Sabia from Karachi, who is organizing all this event with Khiza, who is helping us in IT for these all webinars on Zoom. And thank you so much, Remar, and thank you so much, Leave, all for this informative and wonderful presentation. I know you have few customers in Pakistan, but Pakistan is too much interested to increase the access of PIC certification from 2-3 companies to maybe more than 10 or 20s. And now approximately we have export of $300 million, and government is supporting to increase by 2025 to $5 billion. So this knowledge and this understanding of requirements is very important to face the inspectors from Ukraine. As Lev explained, inspectors are very strict. They are not compromising on the requirements. So we need to understand deeply what are the requirements of PICS, what are the requirements of GCC, so we can comply fully. Thank you so much all. Rema, I would like to ask one question I got on WhatsApp, that what product you suggest for the Ukraine, like BE waiver products or some other products, tablets, capsules, syrup for the fast track for Pakistan market. You have understanding because you have a few top customer. I know I cannot take their name, but you understand Pakistani market. You have a customers. You have a background. So what product you suggest for the fast track GMP inspection or PICS approval?
Okay, Kamran, thank you for question. For first approval, I can suggest solid oral forms with type of generic, with bioequivalence studies, but also it can be with pharmaceutical equivalence for solutions, injectable forms. It will be faster.
Hi, here's Maxim. Yeah, I agree.
So we have a question that what about nutraceutical as compared to pharma?
In Ukraine, we have not so legislation concerning nutraceuticals. The procedure is very easy. For example, from nutraceuticals from Europe in Ukraine is not need to registration. But if nutraceuticals come from, for example, Pakistan, you need to prepare some pack of documents with certificate of analysis, Ukrainian instruction for medical use, and report about safety of your nutrition. And also I have during presentations of our colleagues few questions about nutraceuticals, and I try to answer for all our members. So it's a procedure for registration of nutraceuticals. It's about 3 months, and official cost is about $600. So it's more easier than medicines.
Okay. So we have another question. Can you explain about pharmacovigilance requirements in Ukraine? So you need full-time employee or OT Farm can help the pharmaceutical industry in Pakistan?
Yeah, the farm can provide a pharmaceutical system for Pakistani manufacturers. If Pakistani manufacturers want to enter it, they need to undertake obligations about safety system in Ukraine. In Ukraine, it's mutual, mandatory to have a contact local person, which we can do it for our clients. Also, in Ukraine, we need to prepare for initial submission pharmacovigilance documents. It's a risk management plan. And then after registration, for renewal registration, when preparing addendum to the clinical overview and periodic safety update reports, which are we also prepared for our clients from Europe, Asia, and in other countries. So we can help with this, no problem.
So I understood. So no need to hire the full-time employee. It can be subcontracted to OT Farm, and you can take care of all this, and you can hire the pharmacist there.
Yeah.
So another question, I think we can take this last question for Ukraine and GCC. What about the CROs for BE? You have any approved list, or it can be from anywhere? Like now we know already there's a few CROs in Jordan, India, and South Africa which are approved by WHO. So what is the policy of Ukraine to select and approve CROs to conduct the BE studies?
As I understood right, do you mean Ukrainian requirements to be study, or can you
yes,
repeat?
BE study from contract research organization CROs there is an approved list, or you can do from any CRO? If we do this BE study from Pakistani CRO, they will accept, or they have their own CROs?
For Ukrainian regulatory authority, acceptable BE study which are conducted in completion with the European Union guidance for bioequivalency. So it's not from Pakistan, India, GCC, or another country.
Okay, okay, but it should be approved by EU first.
Right.
Yeah, requirement the same.
Okay. Thank you so much, Amar and Leave. Now I will ask the same question to Ufa, then we can do the closing. Ufa, can you please explain CROs for the GCC?
Yeah, we have approved centers, and there is a list available, which includes like the centers from Jordan, India, whichever approved. We need to have the bioequivalence study done from that centers before we proceed for the product registrations.
So if we will go out of this list, then they will not accept BE studies.
Then there are specific requirements that the center needs to have, and then there is an application which has to make to register these centers first before you go for the product registration.
Okay, but if center is already approved, then definitely they will not go for inspection.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, all. Thank you, audience, for your interest. And yes,
Dr. Kamran, there is another question. What I'm seeing on by the participants that they are asking for GCC is asked by Mr. Yasser Yaqub. What are the inspection requirements for GCC for company registration? I think Ufra, you can provide a list if or whatever the requirements. You can briefly tell them, and later on they can contact.
Yes, sure. I can tell, because once you opt for the company registration, there is an inspection by the GCC members for the GMP adherence, and you have to make the fees, and the inspectors comes for the visit. So I can give you the details about this. It's better to share the guidelines. It's extensive.
Right. So yes, I think you can share it along with the other question is that is there any bioequivalent studies are required for the product registration, but is there any conditions where biowaivers are accepted?
Yes, if the biowaivers they are accepted as per the international guidelines. So if your product, yeah.
And one last question is the nutraceutical facilities from Pakistan are not being approved by UAE ministry, and they are asking for reference country approval. So is that correct?
Yeah, this is what I mentioned. Like for UAE, you will not have a site registration until unless you have your company registered in any of the reference country. So you cannot proceed. Same is
Right, right. I think we have covered the questions what we have received from our participants. Dr. Kamran, you can go ahead with if you need to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sadia Muazzam and Dr. Ufa Ahmed, Dr. Amar, Dr. Lee, for your wonderful presentation, very informative. And I think this is the first time that we are conducting such webinar in Pakistan, where we are combining PICS Ukraine requirement with GCC. So it's a very big region. So we took almost more than 2 hours, and we covered many countries. Vimar, can you just, last question from my side to audience, that can you explain the MOUs of Ukraine with other neighboring countries? Like if we have a PIC certification from Ukraine, where this certificate will be acceptable, especially your neighboring countries like Eastern Europe, like Poland will accept, or like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, we can enter the Russia with this. So our audience and pharmaceutical industry can understand the importance. Like Ufa told us, if we have a GCC, at the same time we can enter 6-7 countries, and even some other countries in GCC like Yemen and Iraq, and they also accepting GCC approval. So you can open 10 countries or 12 countries at one time. So with the Ukraine PICS certification, how many countries we can target?
Okay. I think it's direct questions for Lev about where our PKS certificate can be recognized.
Right,
But
right.
my short question is, for fact, is nowhere. But
No,
some
no,
details.
it's,
But some details from Lev.
yeah. Okay, good question, and it's depend of the product. It's non-sterile, sterile. It's maybe of it's maybe some biological products. GP certificate from Ukraine recognized by at least 10 countries in the world. For example, I know the recognition certificates Ukrainian in Canada. Yeah,
Okay.
and some Asian countries, Philippines, like but it depends of the product. All PICS certificate in some countries in the world is recognized by the authorities, or it has some maybe bonus in timeline of registration of the product.
Okay. So if we take example of tablet, solid dosage form,
Yeah.
so it will be acceptable to Malaysia or some Eastern countries, like you give the example of Philippines. It will be acceptable to Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is also a big market.
No. Kazakhstan, no.
And
It's,
Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, something like this.
no, Kazakhstan or Uzbekistan has his own inspection team. No procedure of acceptance of PICS certificate.
Okay.
It depends on the product, but it can in some cases in minimum 10 countries recognize certificate, at least for non-solid dosage forms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, all. Thank you, audience, for your participation, and we will continue such sessions in future. And GCA is working closely with OT Farm, and we are in partnership. If you want to go for PICS approval from Ukraine, and Remar and his team is always supporting Pakistan pharmaceutical industry, and they have conducted 2 successful PICS approval in Pakistan, and they are looking forward more. And we also have to increase our exports, so we should aim maximum PICS approval from Ukraine, and they are already ready to cooperate and give us more and more information. Thank you so much, all. Take care. See you for next webinar. Bye.
Thank you to all.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.